Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here for this webinar and for bearing with us as we sort out the onslaught of will fairies who are joining us. Just to start this webinar, it feels kind of strange to do a territorial acknowledgement. We aren't all in the same physical place. But nonetheless, most of us are on the same territory, which is Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and present day territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I feel really honored to be on this territory and to be one of the many treaty people of this place. The treaty of this land is the peace and friendship treaties. And those treaties are so life-giving in so many ways to me, because they aren't a treaty of an exchange of land, but rather an acknowledgement of what was a new and remains an ongoing relationship between Indigenous and settler people in this place. So I hope that in our conversation today and in all of the conversations and all of the work that you do in this place, if you're on this territory or if you're in another territory, that you're always mindful of what is that ongoing relationship between yourself and the Indigenous community where you are, and how can you live into that to continue to work for reconciliation in all aspects of our life. So all that said, I'm really excited for this webinar. It's fun to do. I'm on maternity leave, so most of my time is spent playing with the baby, which is really great, but it's kind of cool to hang out with all of you on the internet. And I'm especially excited to learn more about this topic. So before I introduce Leanne and let her dig into all of the good stuff, just a couple of Zoom things that I think will be helpful to know. If you read that email that I sent out this morning, you'll know all these things already, but just to make sure everyone knows them. So if you've used Zoom before, you'll notice that a webinar is a little bit different than a regular Zoom call. So you can't turn on your microphone or camera, so don't be alarmed that Zoom isn't asking you to do those things. It's totally normal for a webinar for that to not happen. A lot of you have found the chat function, so you can send a message there. I'm not sure, I thought that you could send a message to all panelists and all participants. Oh, yes, you can. I see that people are doing that. So all panelists and all attendees will send messages around to me and one another. And panelists will send it to just me and Leanne, but Leanne's not looking at those, so it really is just to me. Because of the will fairy situation, if you can just include your name in your message, that will be really helpful, because then we kind of can know who it is who's messaging. A couple of people are showing up with their own name, which is really helpful. But yeah, so just like Emily just did in the chat right now, just saying whatever you want to say, and then putting your own name. And if you can just include your name every single time, because it's not letting me change your names one at a time. That would be awesome. There's also a Q&A option, which a couple of you have popped questions into already. So that's really great. As questions come up through the webinar, you can drop them in there, and I'll kind of keep an eye on those. And if there are things that are kind of in the moment things that I can just get Leanne to answer in the moment, we'll do that. But the two that are there now, I think probably we'll just hang on to them until the end. So we will get to them, don't worry. They're not being missed just because you're not hearing back right away. And yeah, there will be a time for questions at the end of the webinar. So you can put them in that Q&A, or you can just make a note on your notebook or whatever you have in front of you with your question. Because of everyone being listed as unknown, there is a way that I can turn people's microphones on if they want to ask a question. So we can try that out. If you send in a question and you can say that you'd like to use the microphone to ask it, we can give that a shot. Otherwise, I'll just read the question to Leanne when it's time. Okay, I think that's all of the tech stuff that we need to cover. So as you can see, we have Leanne Matthews with us, which is really great. We're very fortunate to have her join us for this, and I'm very fortunate in particular to have known Leanne for a number of years from various national youth ministry programs, and she actually came to our diocese in 2018 to help out at Clay. So some of you may have met her there in her ministry project on yoga, or hanging out on the beach, or just hanging around at Clay in general. Leanne works for the Diocese of Montreal as the coordinator for youth and digital communications. And she's been working at this online community thing for a long time, unlike so many of us who have just started over the past few months. I'm sure she'll tell you lots more about that. But one of my favorite things of the work that Leanne does is that she hosts a weekly Facebook Live show called Live with Leanne, which is well worth tuning into. So all that, over to you, Leanne. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very, 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 very much, Ali. And thank you for the territorial acknowledgement. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I am here in the spirit of peace and friendship. And so I like that. Thank you for that reminder. So yes, I do digital communications and I do youth ministry. That's sort of like the two hats that I wear. So these are subjects that I'm really passionate about. So I'm very, very thrilled to be here talking to you guys about this topic today. Something else that I do that I think I have a background in education. I have a background also in as an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, which I think will be helpful as well. And I also do a ministry called Supper Club, which I've been doing for about 4 years now, which has been evolving and growing. And I love bringing people together, whether it means face-to-face community or this kind of community. So Supper Club is now a digital community, and I'll be telling you more about that as well. And I've also, I have run kids programs. I did a very successful children's and youth together ministry for 7 years at a parish. That was really, really loads of fun. So yeah, so I'm with you guys. I'm like your comrade in youth ministry, and I'm just happy to talk about how we can the synergy between digital communications and youth ministry. One of the most formative books that I've read that have helped to shape my ministry is a book called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, and I will be telling you guys. We'll be talking more about that book, but honestly, it's through gatherings that I have felt the presence of God in my life, probably more than, not as well as any other time, but that's one of the ways that God has shown up for me. And yeah, I've been preaching and teaching about digital ministry long before the pandemic hit us. So yeah, so here we are. Two of my favorite topics in one webinar. I really hope though today, my goal is to inspire you to really wonder about the possibilities of digital ministry in your unique and individual context, to connect you guys with one another. I think it's another one of the hopes that we have, and to start wondering about the ways that you might collaborate. And I want to provide you with some ideas and strategies to support you on this path. So fingers crossed that I can do all that stuff. And I really hate being the one that talks all the time, but so I'm hoping that this will be more of a conversation rather than just a monologue. But Ali's going to figure out if we'll have a chance to hear more from you guys as we go. All right, so starting off with the why. So why should we do this? Why did Ali ask me to come here, or you all to come together on Zoom webinar to talk about children and youth online? Well, the time isn't now. Unfortunately, the time was yesterday, because we have to do it. Actually, the digital revolution has been way happening, and the church, we're probably the last ones to catch up with it. The future is digital, and this, for some of us, may be difficult. We may resist it. It may make us fearful. Lots of people have anxiety about digital communications, but the thing is, there's no stopping it. It's happening, and now we know. It's here, guys. So we're overdue. We knew this already prior to the pandemic, that Anglicans in particular have been facing denominational decline, that we probably won't even have a future beyond 2040 if we don't make some radical changes. And I believe that one of the ways that we can make this radical change is using digital communication. So here we are in the blink of an eye. We are forced to adapt. And now we're wondering about children and youth online. So a few more reasons other than we have no choice, is how kids learn. Kids have been using digital platforms for entertainment, socialization, education. It's like totally their comfort zone. So in fact, I would say it's like the most empathetic approach to youth ministry, because it's probably their favorite, because, you know, we all know how much kids love the video game, among other fun things that they do online and the YouTube and all the fun stuff. But we get a chance to be a part of that. So they like it, and we have to find out how to make it worth their while to do it with us. So that's number one. Second thing is because we can reach way more people. We can connect with new kids who never maybe been able to come into our programs, come to our churches. Maybe they were too shy. Maybe they were physically incapable. Maybe they didn't think it was cool. Yeah, so we can reach more people. It's efficient. Like, you don't have to buy stuff. Less supplies, less cost, less setup, less cleanup, less environmental impact, less stress. Less than, again, unless you're stressed by digital communications, in which case it's more stress for you, but we will get to pitfalls shortly. Is safe. So in terms of safe church concerns, we will talk about pitfalls as well, but in general, like, there's no travel concerns. So there's no the health and hygiene aspect, even in terms of like how many people, how many adults to children, the ratios. We don't have to be as concerned about some of the safe church protocols that we may have in our dioceses. So why should we do it? Because they need us. They need us desperately. They need their faith communities right now, probably more than ever. We need to be there for them. We need to be the consistent pastoral presence in their lives, especially during a stressful time. The idea of, you know, not having a faith community in a stressful time is hard to conceive of. So we need to do it because they need us, and they need each other. Like, this is a great way not only for you to show up and be a pastoral presence for them, a leader, a guide for their faith, but also to give them an opportunity to chill with each other. Because as we know, we build up some really strong bonds in our youth ministry context. So give them a chance to just listen and learn and grow in their faith together on Zoom or whatever other platform that you may choose to use, which we'll talk about. Another reason why we should do it is because, honestly, it gives us a chance to focus on content in ways that face-to-face gathering may be more prohibitive of. So like, in terms of like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, or, you know, I spilled juice in my pants, not your problem right now. You can really focus on the content of what you know, why you're there, what you're doing, and all those other things that might interrupt our lesson. It's not our concern right now. Unfortunately, they'd have to go to their caregiver for that. I came up with 7, and I don't know, Ali, if it's okay with you, to open the conversation to see if anybody else has any other ideas for why we should be engaging right now with online for children and youth.
Yeah, so if anyone has things to add for why you should engage with children and youth right now, you can pop that in the chat. Leanne's list was really great, but I'm sure that there are lots more.
You have any, Ali? I don't know.
Oh,
maybe I went too far with my 7.
Oh, the list. I only see 6 on your list. I don't know what this means.
I added another one at the last minute, actually. I did. I think number 7, the focus on content, came to me as I was reading them. Like, oh yeah,
great.
Did I miss any?
No, I think I've just been thinking lots about the importance of consistency in relationship. So people are, everyone's feeling a bit disconnected, and such an important part of the life of the church is the relationship that we have with one another, as well as the relationship that we have with God. And so to be able to continue that, I think, is a really important anchoring. Oh, some people have chimed in. Brianna says, I think the piece about connecting children with each other is important. They miss their friends and their routines. Someone says to keep our connections alive. Douglas says to keep the momentum going, building the bridge from then to now. I think that's a really key thing. Like, it's so easy to just think this is a time that's just separate from everything, so whatever. But if we don't keep the connection and keep things going, the then that we're looking forward to is we're not going to have that base anymore. And Emily says the physical social aspect of society is on pause now, but a child's social and emotional development is never on pause.
Yeah, so true. And I wonder, like, also in terms of like the then to the now, because I know that I've been coaching someone in particular here in my diocese who's just building their program for the first time. They're like newly hired, and then the pandemic struck, so they're being forced to build a digital ministry for children and youth, like from only on here. So that'll be really interesting to see how that goes and how much more challenging it may be for them, or maybe not, because they'll only have this as a way of doing it. But we're all pioneering new stuff as we go, so we're all like using trial and error so much of the time. Yeah, thank you for those, and I appreciate that. All right, so I'm sure we'll come up with more also as we continue to lean into this conversation. So let's talk about some of the pitfalls. Kind of touched on a few of them already, but there are, of course, a number of them. I didn't number these because I don't know which one outnumbers the other. It's not a competition, but there are pitfalls in any ministry. And the first one I would say is just like the privilege that comes along with online ministry. The privilege, we assume that everybody has access to an internet connection. Everybody has access to a device. That is so not true, right? A lot of kids don't have that. So this is a huge pitfall, and I have to check myself all the time when I say every child has been using, an iPad since they were 3. No, not true. So check my own privilege around that, check our privileges, and don't assume that everybody has access. That is certainly a pitfall. The technical problems themselves are a challenge. Like navigating the tech can be super anxiety provoking. I speak from experience when I say that it's not always easy to do the troubleshooting, especially when people are looking at you and everything's going awry. Like it can be really, really stressful. It's a pitfall. The learning curve itself, like the stress of learning new things. It's amazing to learn new things, but it's stressful and challenging. And safe church issues. So like there's some nudity that's been happening on Zoom. Right? People are showing up like inappropriately dressed. That's definitely a safe church concern. So dress code can be kind of a thing. And there's also some like Zoom bombing that can happen, and also some stuff around like profanity. So like if there's inappropriate language happening in the house and you're hearing that, that's definitely a violation of a safe church protocol. So profanity, nudity, and also like the location of where, like if a child's like, they're on their phone in the washroom, like, oh, I'm just going to the bathroom. Maybe you should leave your device like not in the bathroom with you when you go. So these are the kinds of pitfalls that like we have to start thinking about. There's also like in some ways there can be a high level of distractibility. So like I have my phone here, I could, I'm Zooming with you right now, but I could totally be texting while I'm Zooming. So, distractibility is always an issue for us in youth ministry, but in some ways it may even be a greater concern here. Lack of human connection, too much screen time. These are pitfalls. I mean, I'm a huge champion of this stuff, but I realize that the dark side of it is that, we are in front of our screens a lot. That's not always healthy, and it's not always ideal. Right now we're in survival mode, so we're doing what we can do. I think I ticked off all the boxes that I could think of for pitfalls. If anybody has any more to add, or I'd be curious to know if there's anything else I missed.
Leanne, maybe while people are thinking about their responses that they want to add in, someone put in the chat, Sandra Fife, says, we had a 102-year-old priest on a Zoom gathering this morning, his second Zoom experience in 1 week. Maybe we need to ask how we can facilitate bringing people into the digital world. Well, not all have computers or devices, most people do. So you did touch on this a little bit. How can we help them to use the devices that they may have to connect to others?
So one of the things I've been advocating for a long time, which I'm not really sure if it's an option right now because it would have required face-to-face connection, is to like set up a kind of clinic, like a digital clinic for like during coffee hour in your church, where like people who are more digitally literate would support those who are less digitally literate. So bring your device. Like we have a back to church. No, it's not that. It's called Social Media Sunday, and every year, and it usually happens in September. I don't know what's happening this year. Everything's upside down in the world, but I wonder if we could just that would be one thing we could do in face-to-face time. But I mean, how do we support somebody who's 102? I guess it would have to be like a phone clinic where you would say, okay, let's get on the phone. I mean, it's really great if you could use FaceTime, or even, FaceTime is so good if they have, because then you could actually, show them around a little bit. But it's so nice to be able to mentor one another, and particularly people who are from a different age demographic who may have just had less exposure in their whole life to digital ministry. Is that helpful?
I think it's helpful. Sandra can chime in the chat if with a response. But so the Real Will Fairy has been doing lots of helping people navigate using Zoom for the first time, and he has said so many times that even if we had just known like a week out that this was something to prepare for, how much easier would it be now if we could have just done that thing where you just are in person and say, okay, you click this and then this. But it's so much harder when you can't just be physically present to show those things.
So true. So true. Yeah. See, all of my lectures about doing digital clinics if anybody listened to me, they would have been okay.
Yeah, totally. So Gail has chimed in with a pitfall piece. Because of how the technologies can distort speech patterns and nuances,
yes,
this can be more problematic than face-to-face.
I'm reading a lot about that. In fact, my guru, Priya Parker, has been doing lots of communicating around the pitfalls and the problems, and of like Zooming in particular. There's all this like sort of, I consider it a little bit harsh critique of Zoom, but they were saying that because we're not reading each other's body language and distortions, that's really exhausting for people. Can only that's why congratulations to you guys sitting here as I yammer on and on forever, because it is hard to be in front of to have a Zoom interaction, because apparently it's more exhausting for us, and because we can't read each other's faces as well, and the distortions. Yeah, it's really impacting. Maybe I have a high threshold for it, but I've really experienced a lot of prayerful, profound encounters here that I haven't felt that distortion has really impacted my ability to connect. But that's what people are saying.
Mm-hmm. So a couple more things from the chat. So something to consider and encourage is to ask youth to do some digital tech coaching for older generations on internet use or device use. It will help foster connection and purpose. I think that's a really great example of the kind of connections that the church can foster. Like, there aren't a lot of spaces where people of different generations get to connect and learn from one another. So that could be really cool. Sandra says that your answer was helpful. They've set up one-on-one phone conversations to get people connected on Zoom, and we'll definitely explore digital clinics in the future. And Brianna says that she's done some phone calls with people to set them up in a private call. Then they're able to get on to further meetings after that. And they have a couple tech support people designated within the parish for group gatherings. A thing that I just discovered about Zoom today, when I was poking around the back end of things, is that there's, if you enable breakout rooms on your Zoom, the person hosting a call can do tech support. So it basically creates an offshoot room for just the host and that person who's having difficulties, and they can kind of control the computer and show them how to do what they need to do. It's very neat, but of course someone needs to be able to get onto Zoom for that to work. So if you can't get onto Zoom, that's a pretty big barrier. I told Leanne that we wouldn't get too into the details of how to work Zoom, and that could be a conversation later. So I've betrayed her trust on that, but I just thought that was so neat I had to share. So Tanya says that they have daily coffee hour where we've sometimes had folks log in just to get a tutorial so they feel ready for worship.
Sweet. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Fun. All right. So am I okay to move on to the next bit?
Yeah, I think.
All right. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the how. It's sort of like best practices for impactful online ministry. Um, so I think when we're looking at how, I think we need to take a really good close look at how we were pre-pandemic, how we were currently engaging in our children and youth ministry um, uh, face-to-face meetings. Like, how is that going for you? Like, how is it working? Like, what needed to be revised before, what needed to be improved, what needed to change, what is awesome, what is impeccable, what's the most effective and fruitful aspect of your ministry? Like, I would urge you to be super honest with yourself and be willing to take a critical look at your existing programs. Um, and I would actually hope that we could take a moment even now, if it's okay with Ali, to do maybe to share and evaluate your program, like the way you meet, how you meet, and why you meet, like to look at what's working and what isn't working, strengths and weaknesses, and this will help you to build an online ministry that's really, really fruitful. So, Ali, what do you want to do here?
So I just copy and pasted from your notes into the chat the things that you just talked about.
Yeah.
So it outlines it there for people, the thing that you're asking of them. So maybe just to give some people some time to think about that, a couple of other things that have come into the comments. Gail said that that this is a privilege issue. Those who have training in communications don't realize that they're nuancing in speech delivery favoritize the use of these technologies. I think that's a solid point. And other people have chimed in that they are doing the phone conversations to help people get going on Zoom, which I think is really great. I think that lots of schools are not requiring, but are encouraging people to use Zoom or Google Classrooms or different things. So I think an advantage to working with some young people, not all, of course, but some, is that they are using these things. So finding out what schools in your area are using, I think will help overcome some of those barriers a little bit. Like if your young people are already using Google Classrooms and not Zoom, don't try to teach them to use Zoom. Just figure out how you can use the technology that they are already engaging with. It's kind of like church talks a lot about these days, about how you can't expect people to come to us anymore. We need to go to where they are. Like find where they are online.
Right.
Okay, so Sandra says, I have teenagers, but the technology we're using in our parish are not the ones that they know and are familiar with. I wonder if we're still missing something here. Around the same wavelength, Sandra. And Douglas says this is an opportunity for us to assess and prioritize the needs of children, youth, and their families, and to lean into the need over a program tradition. And someone says regular Sunday morning Christian education was great for children under the age of 10. I can't see who that is because they haven't included their name. But I think Douglas's piece of, like, this does free us from some of that baggage of tradition. Right. Sunday school's always been like this, so why would we do anything different?
Right. And I think like the whole thing with the evaluation process, like I think that it's something that's totally worthwhile to take on, like either in small groups or I'm not sure, but I just think I want to like just leave you with the idea before we move on to the next thing, that like I would urge you to just take some time either alone or in a breakout group of your own choice to do this evaluation and look at your strengths and weaknesses, because I think that's just how we grow in ministry, and particularly how we'll build this type of online ministry is through like just a nice close look at our strengths and weaknesses. If you're feeling very energetic, you also might consider doing an anonymous digital survey to the people who you're already engaged with and be like, what did you love? What did you love not so much? And just take from that and see how that can help to shape your digital ministry practices. You can use like SurveyMonkey or whatever to do that.
Something that I'll do to help make it a little easier for people to do that is I'll take the notes and put together a bit of a worksheet so that I know that there are lots of people who are in this webinar as kind of the delegate from their ministry team. So you can take that to your team and kind of walk through the questions together, probably in some digital form. And then certainly I'd be happy to continue conversations, or like in the next steps of this webinar series, we can keep talking about that there.
I think it can be really fun and also difficult, but really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, so do you want me to, I know that some people are writing some stuff. Do you want me to move on, or do you want to read those comments?
I can read them to you. So Brianna says that their youth programming is primarily Messy Church. They don't do anything specific for children on Sundays, which means that right now children aren't getting a whole lot in the way of ministry. They're currently trying to work out the logistics of doing Messy Church virtually or at a distance.
Right.
Carl says that they've been successful with VBS and other game/family nights, so they're exploring how to do some of this online. Group Canada has been promoting doing some parts online. I got an email, sorry, that was the end of Carl's, this is me. I got an email yesterday, I think, from this organization called Illustrated Ministry. I know some people in this webinar have used their stuff before, and they're working on putting together a VBS program specifically for this time. So with everything able to be delivered online and support for parents to do pieces at home. So that's a cool thing to look to, I think. Ruth has some Messy Church resources to share. Ruth is a really great resource person to connect to. So Ruth, if you just send me a message with any contact information you're willing to share, I can stick that in the email that I'll send out after.
Okay, good. So here's the good news, you guys, and thank you very much for those of you who took a few seconds to just write a little bit about maybe what your strengths are. But the technology, this technology, literally, and I'm not exaggerating, it offers us endless possibilities to fulfill our wildest youth ministry dreams. There's hardly nothing that we cannot do. That's probably bad English right there, but who cares? Because I really want to emphasize that there's nothing, the games, the possibilities are endless for how we can connect music, meditation, art, faith building activities, yes to confirmation prep, yes to Messy Church, yes. There's every door is open to us. But most of it's not, I'm not going to guarantee you that it'll be perfect or free of glitches, but hopefully it will reflect you guys and your core values, your hopes and your dreams, and the purpose of your specific time together. So, I mean, that is another key word that I want to leave you with today is purpose. We're looking a little bit into our strengths and weaknesses, and now we need to dive into what is the actual purpose for why we gather. And the purpose can no longer be because we've always done it, because that's not a viable purpose for viable ministry in the digital age. It's not, because we haven't always done it. First of all, it's new. And second of all, because I think we owe our people more than that, better than that. We owe our communities a really meaningful sense of purpose for why we gather. That's something else. I would urge you in a future time or webinar to take a moment, or even now, if you feel, if anything comes to you into your heart, what is the purpose for your gatherings? If you establish that and you feel like sharing it with Ali and with me, I would love to know that, because I think this is the whole point of digital ministry, is to share the purpose of your gatherings and what is it. So establishing a meaningful and sustainable digital connection and developing strategies to connect with young people is largely a trust building exercise. So once you've figured out what your purpose is, you need to gain the trust of your community to gather them together in order to share that purpose with them. And of course, hosting an effective digital ministry is goes way beyond scheduling a Zoom meeting and clicking show up. I would encourage you to approach it. I've got a couple of steps for you to to approach your newfound digital ministry in the following ways. So step one is invite. Inviting is actually a really, really critical and important piece. It's more than just like, hey, I'm doing a thing. Great. Like it's got to be like well thought out. Your purpose has to be the central feature of it. And I would urge you to create a digital campaign to start the invitation process, because your actual gathering starts the minute that you invite people. That's when your gathering begins, not when they actually show up at your Zoom room. But the minute you invite people is when your gathering starts. So your digital campaign needs to reflect the sentiment of the gathering. So your digital campaign, of course, would likely include email, social media and websites, maybe phone calls, text messaging. You can decide how you choose to execute that strategy. Emails are fantastic, by the way, even though it's sort of old school in terms of like how people do ministry nowadays. But it's still like, because usually our churches have these honking databases of emails that we can just like call your church secretary person and be like, I need access to that email list stat. And you're going to turn that into like gold, because you're going to not email them the same way they've always been emailed before, saying like, church bazaar, 6 o'clock. You're going to be like, I'm offering you, like, the purpose for my gathering is this. And that's usually like something probably really meaningful and exciting. So you're going to surprise people with this beautiful email campaign, introducing yourself, right? Like you're starting from scratch here. So it's an opportunity to like rebrand, introducing yourself and talking about your purpose. This is exciting stuff. Like everybody's going to be on fire for this. A video would be ideal, but a blog style introduction will be great too. Like, hey, my name is Ali. I'm awesome. My kid's so cute. People can't even stop looking at him on my Facebook page. All that jazz. Like, I've been around, I've done this, that, and the other. I'm passionate about your kids and I can't wait to see them on Zoom at this time. Emails are most effective when they're dynamic and focused, and they may have some visual elements depending on how creative you're feeling, but it's totally setting the tone for your gathering, as will your social media campaign. Like, I don't know if you guys are using Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, but like all of this can feed into the invitation piece of your gathering. The second thing you will do once you've done this beautiful invitation is you will proceed to connect people. You want to connect your members. I would suggest using a Facebook group, just because it's sort of like intimate and you can be private and you guys can have a little bit more like, intimate style conversations. It allows you to like post pictures and jokes and let people get to know you and one another in a bit more of an intimate way. You can use polls in there. Polls are a great thing to use in your Facebook group. You can use video, like live video. You can even show up every day and be like, hey, today I'm like super lonely, or today I'm, really my prayer life isn't going so great, or today I had this amazing encounter with God. Whatever it is, however it is you might show up, and to be as authentically you as you can be. You also might use it to prepare for the gatherings. Hey guys, we're meeting Sunday night. Don't forget, we're going to be looking at this Bible passage. Don't forget to bring your Monopoly game or whatever you're doing, right? That's up to you. But your Facebook group, it gives you a chance to like prep your audience, to stay connected. Unfortunately, like a pitfall is that it takes a ton of work. Like you need to just, can't just like, there's my Facebook group and walk away. Like you need to monitor it. You need to be on it. You need to make sure that, you're loving up and keeping your community connected on there. So you need to kind of be present, but include other people to be present as well. So yeah, it requires regular and diligent communication. And the third thing I would suggest that you do, you invite, you connect, and thirdly, you gather. And this is where you can use Zoom or Google Meets or Facebook Messenger groups, any kind of video chat to host an online ministry session. Some people are even using the phone. People who don't have, I've a number of parishes I've heard of who don't have, whose participants don't have video. They can just use the phone, and just you guys can have like a group chat, I think, on there. I don't really use the phone. I usually use the video, but you can just, so you gather whoever you want to gather. We're not going to get into the tech part of it, but there are like a plethora of ways for you to gather. And this is where you execute the purpose of your gathering. So what is the purpose of your gathering? I don't know. That's for you to decide. You're going to work on that. But really what's important for you to know is that you need to take ownership of your role as the host of this gathering. That you might think like I've fallen into the trap myself of being like, I'm a really chill host. I'm just really chill and really relaxed. I'm really not chill or relaxed. Like everything I do is extremely strategic. I've thought it out because it matters to me, because the people who I'm gathering with matter to me. So being chill, sometimes people think it's like, it's cool and great, but it's really, nobody wants to go to a thing with a chill host. They want to go to a thing with somebody who actually loves them and cares about them. So the purpose of your gathering is to, bring people together, and to care about them and to be fair with them and to be generous with your authority. Make sure that the needs of your guests are being met. And I don't know those needs, and I don't know you, but I do know that that's when you're gathering, that should be your highest priority and the focus of your time together. And there's one more step for you is following up. You need to follow up with people. So this could happen phone, text, email, Facebook group, and this needs to be a part of your social media campaign. So all the stuff, the Instagram, the Facebook group, like, hey, how did it go? Like, share how it went. If people weren't there, inquire with them. Let everybody know that they matter. Every member of your group matters. If they weren't there, ask, and if they were there, be super generous in expressing gratitude that you were together. So there's all this momentum that needs to continue on in between gatherings. And you need to remind your community that you care and that you are invested in their faith formation. So that's the fourth piece. I have a little bit more to say, but I feel like I've been talking a lot. Ali, do you want me to stop talking now?
I never want you to stop talking, Leah.
Maybe we should go to like see what other people are saying, because I don't know. Feels like it's a lot of like.
I can do that. Those steps were really helpful. I'll do a bit of a synopsis of those as well in this thing that I'll send out. If I'd already thought this up, I would have it ready to send out today, but I didn't, so it will come.
I can just forward it to you, and you can forward it on or whatever. Like,
yeah. Okay, so I missed what this was connected to. Oh, maybe it was email. You can send countdown reminders about things.
Yeah. Yes. Great idea. Love it.
If you
that Instagram stories has like a countdown, you can. Yeah, that's cool.
I was just about to say that, and they can click it, and then Instagram will remind them. So again, it's that thing like if they're already there in Instagram. Carl asks if there's a particular formula or maybe a model for follow-up. He says that's been a weakness in his parish, and I know that that's where, certainly that's where I felt like I fall down a lot in various ministries, is like, it sure would be helpful to have a kind of a model or a pattern, a formula for that follow-up piece.
I'm a huge fan of like, so I'm really like detail oriented with this stuff and pretty organized with the way I do it. Like sometimes to a fault, because it's like, it just consumes me. But I definitely am a big fan of like a lovely email reminder prior to the event and a lovely follow-up email following the event. So I kind of sandwich the event, which I guess is kind of like a formula. It's a sandwich. So you've got like the event and the follow-up. And I also try to like put stuff in the email that's just like might actually help people. I kind of try and treat email like I would treat a social media post. Like somebody might have liked like the chili that I made. Like, oh my gosh, here's the recipe for the chili. And they'll be more likely to open the email. So like, empathy is the name of the game in ministry, right? Like, so how can we be empathetic in every one of our transactions? Like give them stuff that they want to give away, all your best ideas, all your best recipes, in your email, in your follow-up, and in your reminder. You're muted. You're muted.
I'm not muted now.
Okay.
Not really helpful, so I hope that other people will too.
Okay, good.
Nikki asked if we can get a copy of your notes. I have the original notes that you.
The better version. I'll give you the better version with the number 7.
Yeah, perfect. With all of the secret ingredients that you don't give out when you cook your cookie recipe or whatever. So yeah, we'll send that out soon.
So yeah, what do you want me to tell me to tell me what you want me to do?
Okay, let me look. What's your next piece?
Because I have some storytelling that I could just do, and I have a review.
Yeah, maybe some storytelling. I think that would be that's what I'm interested in.
Okay. All right, you guys. So I know storytelling is usually the least painful part of any kind of webinar thing. So I have some like just less like information and a bit more about me, and so here you go. So back to the Art of Gathering, which I was telling you guys about earlier, and I have a quote from the Art of Gathering from Priya Parker. You all need to get that book, Emergency Stat, and get a highlighter and just like have so much fun with that book. It's going to revolutionize the way that you do ministry. If you haven't read it already, get it. I actually am, to be honest, I only have the ebook, and so I don't have the highlighter thing, but it's like I've got notes and notes, but I have to get a hard copy. So it's totally influenced the way and validated me. Some things I'm like, yes, like I did do that. And other things I'm like, ooh, I didn't know that I needed to do that. But it's really helped me. And I'll read you a quick quote from Priya's book. So she says, to get the group to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is one of my favorite things, we facilitators needed to share an even more personal story than we expected our clients to. Clients in our case, we don't have clients, but you know what I'm saying. We would set the depth of the group by whatever level we were willing to go to. However much we shared, they would share a little less. So we had to become, in effect, participants. I thought that was so cool for me in my role in youth ministry. Check-in was an essential part of how we gather. And I gather kids, like in Montreal, we don't have a million kids to choose from. We used to have like 20 kids on an average Sunday, kids of all ages. It was like the Lord was with us. Let me just say it that way. And we would check in 20 kids can take forever, but it is so important for us. And I would be really vulnerable. Like if I had a dog who was sick or a dog who would die, or if I was going through a thing, like I would share that. And my partner and I noticed that our sharing created a vulnerability in the group that was really key to our connection. So that's just an example of how we model and set the tone for our gatherings through our own level of sharing and commitment, and willingness to be vulnerable. I mean, I would argue that when vulnerability happens, sharing happens, and we start sharing, that's when we really feel God in our midst, right? When we get real, and we're willing to ask real questions and really be ourselves. A little bit of story time around my supper club ministry. So supper club, again, is a thing that we do now we do it every week, but we do once a month, and we eat food and we talk about scripture, and we've been doing a book study on Rachel Held Evans' book. And the ministry has just been like growing and growing, and like to the point that it's actually too many people for like meaningful dialogue. And I was trying to figure out how to manage that face to face. No longer a problem because we're smaller groups now online. But all this to say that when I read Priya's book, it really helped me to shape Supper Club in a new way, and I saw the ministry grow, and I loved the way that implementing all the stuff from Priya Parker's book really helped me to build my ministry, to change the ministry, and to adapt it. But like I think the words change, adapt, and willing are like really essential for us, because sometimes we get really stuck in the way that we do things in the church. But like I was really being willing to change, adapt, being willing. Those are keywords for ministry, and particularly for digital ministry, because we constantly have to adapt on here, and it's changed, and the technology changes every 5 seconds. So these are keywords for building ministry, digital ministry. So what attracts me to digital ministry? Okay, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was a little skeptical about digital anything not so long ago. I was like, I really love face-to-face. I love human connection. I'm a feeler, I'm a people person. I love body language. And I was very skeptical, like many of us are. And I learned through doing my EFM course, at EFM, half face-to-face, half digital, that real meaningful human connections are very, very possible here, and sometimes even more possible because we can actually see each other's faces. I can't see yours right now, which by the way is a massive deficit for me, because I'm like looking, I don't even know where to be looking. I don't want to look at myself. Anyway, so I love looking at people, and I see a lot in your face, And you can do that so much on a platform like Zoom. So I learned that through trial and error and through a willingness to like move past my fear and give it a go. And I loved how thrilled I was with that. Okay, let's talk about quickly. My wife is a teacher. And I have been listening to her. She's teaching right now. Like I'm at one end of the apartment, she's the other end. And she's been teaching online to this whole thing. And I've been like, like listening a lot to what she's been doing. And I thought this could be helpful for you guys a little bit. So, um, yeah, it's just incredible to watch them to go from basically 0 to 100 in a matter of weeks. And to observe the innovative and creative ways that she and her team have tackled like e-learning. Okay. So like she's done everything like music, puppets, playing Jeopardy, games, Listorama, like the no shortage of stuff that you can do if you just put your mind to it and are willing to adapt to this medium. One of the things I would say that I've observed is that younger kids are definitely harder. It's harder, like the younger the children are, the more challenging challenges they'll have with the technology. Yeah, and the parents can also, they're like always in the background, like creating this little, like, normally we have this thing with kids, right? We can get them in our group and we have this, our own little world that we can create. That world is interrupted a little bit by the parents being like shouting out the answers, or tell her you want to pray for your mother or something. Like, no, we didn't ask what you want to pray for. This is your child's chance to pray. So this has been like a bit of a problem. But one of the things I noticed, I'll give you guys a tip, is that the first couple of weeks they started this, they just focus on the tech. They're like, today we are going to just turn on our Zoom and turn off our Zoom. Mute your microphone, unmute your microphone. They're not using Zoom, by the way. They're using Google Meets. But I'll just say whatever tech you use, just starting off and building up incrementally in terms of how you engage them, and then getting into the more exciting, jazzy stuff like the games and all that stuff. I've seen that be very effective for them as they've been doing it. And very short sessions, you guys, also very short sessions, and talking a lot about boundaries, just like we would in a face-to-face gathering. Because again, this is all new. So like what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. Okay, and what do I hope will be the outcome of an intentional, well-implemented digital ministry program? What do I hope? Well, I hope that I know that we're able to fill the gaps here, to build the bridges, like there's like, and to enhance our ability to know one another, which is the goal, and ultimately to serve God, right? So meaning, we're able to make meaning, deepen relationships. That's all here for us if we just go about the basic things that we know how to do, that we're learning how to do. And what has scared me? Learning new things has scared me. Making mistakes scares me. Losing control scares me. So definitely every time I do these things, I have to confront my fear and overcome them. So I'm going to do a quick review of the 4 things that I talked about, and then maybe let Ali say something so I can stop talking. So 1, digital revolution. The digital revolution leaves us no choice. The time isn't now, it was yesterday. So why should we do it? Because the party's over. Digital revolution is here, and we have no choice. Period. 2, a ministry audit is a helpful way to shape your online gatherings. So you guys, you need to sit down, and however you want to do it, text it, write it, but document somehow to figure out what's working and what isn't. Take a good, honest look at your existing offerings, like what's awesome, what needs to just go away and never come back. Like, and that's okay too. Maybe really painful, but be willing to like cut stuff off and do a course correction. 3, your gatherings must be purposeful and well hosted. You need to be generous with your authority. Those words from Priya Parker, they impact every time I'm like hosting anything. Generous authority is such an important, it's a key, these are key words for us as leaders in youth ministry. And it will look different for each of us, but how can you be generous with your authority? How can you be purposeful? And how can you host with grace? Relationships and connections are crucial. This is number 4. Relationships and connections are crucial for all ministry, but in particular for online ministry. And they involve an organized and intentional communication practices. That's all I have for you.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, a quick thing. I realized that at the start, I was supposed to talk about the purpose for this webinar, and I completely dropped the ball. So I'm sorry that I did that, but I think going to make it a teachable moment. I find it really comforting and reassuring when I'm part of online ministry things or online anything, when really regular mistakes like that happen. I forget to include important things all the time. So it kind of feels a bit familiar to make a mistake in a way that has nothing to do with the Zoom, has nothing to do with the internet or anything like that. So, I mean, it's better late than never. My hope, the Connect team's hope in putting on this webinar and this series was to hopefully inspire and encourage some ideas for how to engage with children and youth in this time. Some parishes are doing some things. Obviously, I can't see everything that everyone is doing, but I think there's certainly potential for more to happen. And I think the stuff that you've offered us, Leanne, I think it's really great, and I hope that it will lead people to do some more things. A couple things from the chat, and then there are a bunch of questions, which is exciting. A thing that I thought you would particularly warm your heart when you said that people should read Priya Parker's book. A very helpful webinar participant found the link and pasted it in the chat for you. So anyone can find that right in there. So thank you for that, Tanya. One of the Synod office staff at the Diocese of Montreal does that when Leanne does live videos. Every time Leanne mentions something, Ardith is right there pasting it in. It's really excellent. Okay. So there are some questions. You want me to?
Yay, absolutely. Thank you that you still have any time for me at all. I applaud you. I applaud your patience, all of you.
Oh, one more thing that I'll mention now, and I'll mention it at the very end, and I'll mention it in the email. I hope that using the webinar format for this moment was helpful. This is a series, it's not just a one-off. So next week, there's going to be another conversation on this same topic, and it will be a regular Zoom meeting. So in the follow-up email that I'll send out with all of the information that I've promised you, there'll be information for how to call into that meeting, and it will just be a regular meeting where you can have your microphone and you'll have video if you'd like those things, or you can call in from a telephone. So hopefully we can connect with one another in a more intentional way now that we've learned all of this great stuff from Leanne. So it'll be next week at the same bat time, similar bat channel as today. Okay, so there were questions in the Q&A from Go, which is really exciting.
Yay, good.
So I can't see, I've been working away at changing all the wills into their actual names during this webinar, but some of the questions were from before I started that. So I don't know whose question this was, but are there special approaches to work with youth and families who are not Christians but want a spiritual approach to their lives? No pressure, just a little question for you, Leanne.
Oh my Lord. Well, I mean, I think that last time I checked, Christianity was a form of spirituality. So we are all, those of us who are on the Christian path, or those of us who are on a spiritual path, we're all on a path towards the divine, and the divine can look many different ways. So I would, my Supper Club ministry, for example, has a number of people who don't identify as a Christian. And we sit around and people openly, talk about that they are not so sure, and they're very welcome, and they, we mingle very well. I would say it's many of the same principles, minus, I guess, some of the insider's Christian language that we use, which assumes that we all know the same things and the same prayers and the same hymns and have the same books. Like that stuff you have to swap out. But the fundamental teachings of our Lord are those of the Spirit.
Next question. Are you ready? From Douglas. Douglas is a priest in his first year in his parish. This fall, they began to see a somewhat regular return of parents and young to teenage folks. That's really exciting. How may he best engage with that momentum at this time using technology? Thanks, Leanne. I love your weekly live, by the way.
Stop. Thanks, Douglas. Wow. Hey, can you read the question again?
Yes. So the parish has begun to see a somewhat regular return of parents and young to teenage folks. How can they engage with that momentum at this time with the use of technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about the multi-age situation, because as I was sort of saying, that's one of the strengths that I had in my former parish, where I was, youth ministry person. I had all these kids, different ages, and there's a lot of mentorship that would happen from the older kids to younger kids, and that was so healthy and lovely. And I was like, how do we resolve that? Like, because they don't have older kids being able to say, come, I'll show you how to do this thing, because they're all in their own little silos now. Then I would say, I guess you need to build a family. My suggestion would be like, do a family approach, like something that would just be like some type of community family building thing, where like you would just show up and either do like a prayer session or a listening session, or something that would be appropriate for like teenagers and their parents and their young children, which is some people think impossible. I think it's very possible. I think there's often more synergy between age groups than we give one another credit for. So again, I don't know these people. I don't know how that would look. I don't know you, but leaning into your strengths and thinking about how to lead something that's appropriate for everybody. And prayers, prayer is universal. So when in doubt, pray together.
Great. Thanks, Leanne. I was going right through the list, but on the note of prayer, there is a question about that. So we'll go to that. So Sandra asks, how can we use digital technologies to help children and youth learn more about how to pray at home / where they are, rather than just when they're at church? This time seems like it has real potential to change the lives of children and youth in a positive way.
Oh my God, my favorite subject. So what we've been doing at Supper Club is we have been, so there's so many free, first of all, online resources for prayer. Like, in fact, 24/7 prayer. I think it's called the prayercourse.org. Like, they have a whole prayer coursing that you can take a look at. It's not geared to adults, geared to children, but I think anything can be modified for kids. And Supper Club has been like, we took that course, and then now every week we show up and we share our own prayer practices, and we pray together based on if you're a meditator, you would lead a group meditation. If you like to use a Bible app, and we would use that. So I would say, like, inquiring about different prayer practices and sharing those is a really nice sort of grassroots way of just reminding ourselves that we don't only need to pray in church, and then a lot of people's prayer life happens a lot of the time out of church anyway, even if it means like reciting the Lord's Prayer before you fall asleep at night, or whatever it is that you do, or like pray before you eat, or just pray with them, talk about prayer, or even just talk about people often like to lament that they don't like praying, and that's fun to not that they don't like it, but they're having trouble. Like, praying is not coming naturally to me right now. That seems like a taboo thing for us to say as Christians, but it sometimes, like, your prayer life might feel bad, and to create a safe space to talk about that. Like, or my children find praying boring. Okay, well, why, and how can we make it more fun? Like, asking honest questions about prayer, I think it's rich. That's always rich stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Just before I go on to another question, Ruth chimed in and said that prayer course, the adult one, is awesome. So you should look that up, folks.
And the National Church has a prayer resource too, like how to pray at home or something. It's on their website. I just actually shared it on our Montreal Diocesan Facebook today. I actually don't even know if it's good because I didn't read it, but I didn't look at the prayers, but I do know that normally stuff that comes out of the National Church is pretty reliable. So there's that too. There's, so many free resources for prayer.
Mm-hmm. And just before we do the next question, if you have questions still, you can take them in. It's not, the time for entering your questions has not been closed. Okay, Kristen asks, what are some of the factors, pros and cons, etc., to consider when deciding between an open format like Facebook Live versus a closed one like Zoom?
Cool. I have been thinking so much about that as I've been watching so many leaders, lean into those different platforms. I love Zoom because it's much more interactive and you can see each other, as I said. And also, it's not just like, it's not so hierarchical where one person gets all the power. And like Facebook Live, you get the power to like talk and be seen and heard, and the other people only get to write. So I like the leveling of Zoom where everybody has equal power. Although there is, of course, you need to be generous with your authority, but you can of course mute people. You have control to make sure that things don't go awry, because in any gathering somebody could take up too much space, blah blah blah. But that's a different thing. So I would say Zoom is great for allowing people to talk, right? And for giving people that space. And Facebook Live is great for basically saying what you want to say. But I think I think as I'm just thinking about this in my mind, you're allowing more people to join you on Facebook Live. And this is like, Zoom rooms are closed. You have to, usually it's invite only, because you don't want to have weird Zoom bombers come in and be inappropriate or rude. But whereas Facebook Live, you could potentially reach more people, which is a good thing. So they each have their pros and cons, but I've heard many people in ministry say, and maybe you all have heard the same thing, that they're really enjoying Zoom for worship, and Facebook maybe more for informal chats and that kind of thing. Is that right? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I love Facebook Live, though. You guys know that. I do it. I think you should all do Facebook Live. It's really fun.
And super fun thing, if you tune into Live with Leanne and you comment, she'll say hi to you, and every time it makes me feel like a celebrity.
It's fun.
So Dorothy chimed in the chat with a prayer suggestion, which I think is really great. To have youth look back at the last 5 people that they've texted and pray for them. Amazing when making this mindful, they were able to recognize what their friends needed.
Okay, Dorothy, that wins. That's like such a good comment. I love that. I love that. Like, another thing, we could probably spend like another whole other session just like sharing ideas about, things like ideas like that we could really enrich the ways that we do engage with one another, like just little tips and tricks of things that have worked. That's such a great idea. I love it.
Leanne, we just have a request. If you can just remind us when Live with Leanne happens.
Well, Live with Leanne is live on Facebook every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I think is an hour and a half away from you. An hour? What are we different? An hour away. So we're an hour before you. Yeah. Like, so it'd be 11 o'clock your time, right? So 11 o'clock your time. And it's like, my Facebook is like Leanne Matthews. I don't even know like how to say that, but there's no E at the end of Leanne. I don't know, but, and I usually interview people, and sometimes I just talk about things, and sometimes I interview people. And I almost have 150 episodes. So like, I don't do them in the summer, but I usually do them from like September to June. And I'm at 148, I think. So I'm trying to think of something special to do for the 150th episode.
Excellent.
It's more than you asked. You just said, what time is it? You didn't need to know how many episodes I did.
No, that's great. You got to promote. If you find yourself looking at past episodes, I would strongly recommend you take a look at the interview that Leanne did with Primate Fred back in the day when he was still our primate. It's really great. None of you will be surprised to know that, having heard Leanne today.
And knowing how wonderful Fred is, because, oh my gosh, he's so great. And I had no idea how great he was. So definitely that was a highlight in my entire life. Never mind like of Live with Leanne. Like, interviewing Fred was amazing.
Okay, a couple more questions. So from Gail, what has been your experience using pre-recorded music as part of digital outreach? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that's similar to before, but it's different. What did the participants say about how the content was received? I'm just going to unmute myself. Like, how was the sound quality?
I don't know the question still.
Okay, I'm just going to unmute myself. Hopefully you can hear me over the sad baby. What's been your experience of using pre-recorded music as part of your digital outreach? What did participants say? What did participants have to say? And how was the content received?
So I've had a terrible time with music. So we do, a Supper Club usually has a worship component to it, for example, and we learned the hard way. Now everybody seems like it's an established fact that you cannot actually make music on Zoom. I didn't know that before. Here comes Simeon. Hi, baby. So I tried to play the guitar, like I tried to have someone play the guitar or piano, and it was dreadful. And so now you're supposed to do pre-recorded music. You guys all know more about that than me, because I have just quit on music. I'm like, it's so bad. We can't sing together. I find that really sad. I think it's something that we're all right now like trying to navigate, right? This, how do we create music? How do we sing together? This is a huge part of our tradition. And I'm feeling like it's falling a little short. I'm falling short in that area. I haven't done pre-recorded. I hear that's what you're supposed to do. And maybe I will, but I've just been leaving this song portion away from out of Supper Club lately, which is sad. Sorry, I don't have any more wisdom on that.
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Can you give more examples of the types of online/email giveaways that are suitable for older youth, or for school age youth, or for families? Do you mean physical items like physical dot-to-dots, graphics, poetry, prayers for the family?
Yeah, I find what people really want to see or to learn or to hear is mostly stuff about themselves. So like I would say, let's say as a follow-up, if in a particular gathering, if there was a contribution from a participant that seemed to be significant, I would say like take a portion of that and say, it was really awesome when Gary talked about his new guitar lessons. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gary. We would love to hear you play your guitar. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Where like you just, like there's so much content right under our noses that we don't really have to look very far to find, like gifts within the existing community. So playing on those gifts and sharing those gifts, congratulating and celebrating accomplishments, and then highlighting them through a collaboration would, I think, is what I would mean by giving things away. I'm trying to think of like something with older youth that also might be relevant. But I think what I try to do a lot is just shine the light on the community, like shine the light on the gathering and on aspects of that gathering and that community that would be helpful to others and also would make just really bring up, like benefit the whole group. Does that make sense at all? I don't even know. I hope it does.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Ruth just chimed in to say that you can use pre-recorded music and invite all participants to sing at the top of their lungs, and they'll be muted. So
that's fun. That's a fun idea. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, that's the end of our list of questions.
Yay.
Thanks again, Leanne. This has been really interesting and helpful for me, and I hope that it has been for other people who are watching. So just a couple next step pieces. I've promised a lot of things in this email that I'm going to send out, so it might end up being a couple of emails just to make it easier to digest. But the number one thing that I want to highlight for you is that next week, Thursday, 2 o'clock, same time, we're going to have a conversation on Zoom with Leanne. So if you kind of percolate on these things, do some more thinking, talking to people in your community, talking to people elsewhere who are doing stuff, you can come to that with questions, with things that you want to talk about, and we can connect with one another then. And then the next week, we're going to have a panel discussion with a couple people who have been trying doing online stuff with children, youth, or families in various ways. And we'll be able to ask them some questions about what's been working, what hasn't, what they've learned, and what they can offer for us. You don't need to register for that, for either of those. I'll include the link in the email that I'll send. So, yeah.
I just want to thank you, Ali, and thank all of you for your heart for this conversation, and for, I know how hard it is to like be trying all this new stuff during this really difficult time. So just congratulations on all of them, all of us, for pioneering this new way of connecting. I know it's not easy, but congratulations to all of you on just for being here.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for everyone who's watching. And this will be put on, I think, YouTube. So feel free to share it with other people, and you can invite additional people to be part of the follow-up conversations. Just a small story for you to think about as you, or to hold as you think about maybe trying new things. I know that a big fear in lots of stuff with children and youth and families is, what if no one comes, or what if there's only one? How awkward is that going to be if only one person calls in? So last week, the Family Resource Center in Amherst, normally every week they do this thing called Baby Friendly Drop-In, where everyone can come and bring their babies and get them weighed and talk to a health nurse and be community and whatever. So they decided to try it online. And I was the only one who called in. And it was really great. Like, just to have a conversation with people who care about me and who I care about, who I haven't been able to connect with. Yeah, maybe it would have been great if other people were there, but that's not what I think when I think back on that. All I think is how nice it was to talk to Kate and have her ask questions, and I got to ask her questions. So don't let the fear of what if no one comes hold you back from trying something, because really magical things can happen in those small spaces. Obviously, it's good to, I always say this in Healthy Boundaries, which I know most of the Healthy Boundaries training, which I know most of you have done. Even in digital spaces, it's good to make sure you have a second adult present if it's with minors. So maybe have it, like, even if you only have one young person, have your second adult there too. But yeah, don't let that fear hold you back. So
sorry, because I just, that is like our worst fear, isn't it? Like that the one showing up thing. I hadn't even thought about that. Thank you for her. And in fact, maybe it's like even less bad on digital, because I totally happened to me in face-to-face where no one's come, and I've had a dinner for 20 ready. Yeah. 0. Okay. None. I literally would go home crying. But from this, you don't have to go home crying, because well, first of all, you didn't make the chili, and second of all, one person, you can still do stuff on here. That's so good.
So yeah, I hope that you go and try some stuff, and I look forward to connecting with all of you folks, and with you, Leanne, next week.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you so much, Ali.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you all soon. Bye.